Hey YouTube, my name is Elena,
And I'm Bjorn.
and this is Vikings React, where we take a look at your favorite Viking TV shows and tell you what they get right and what they get wrong in terms of historical accuracy.
Who are we to judge anything? I've been reenacting for about 10 years, and she tells me what to think. Today, we're going to be watching Vikings, Season 6, Part 1, Episode 3. All right, okay, had to make sure. Ready?
Yes.
Cool.
Since I was growing tired of her, I drafted her request. She was only delayed in being terrified.
Ah, he's learning. He's picking up on it.
That's what children do.
That's what I'm gonna do when I grow up.
That is your problem. But you can solve it. After all, you're the king.
So I guess it's a pretty good topic to cover here. I was gonna mention it last episode, but figured I'd kind of let it unfold itself. Polygamy in the Viking Age did exist, and jarls could have a wife and mistresses, essentially. So it wasn't unheard of for a man to be with multiple women.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It was kind of, it wasn't something you'd like flaunt or like be very open about. So it was something that you're supposed to kind of keep hidden or keep a secret, because it was still like a taboo thing, but it was widely known. Like it's kind of like how it is almost in like the more modern age, I guess. Like that still happens.
Like, you don't really talk about it too much, but
Yeah,
it does
like
exist.
so I'm thinking about I don't remember the exact quote, but it's from the Havamal or the Hovamol, which is Odin's advice to man. It means the sayings of the High One, and in it he talks about how like men aren't to be trusted and how women aren't to be trusted, especially women aren't to be trusted. But there's a part that pretty much says like it's fine to lay with another woman if you're out and about doing your own thing, so long as you don't whisper secrets to her, like into her ear, and so long as like nobody finds out. So even like the wisdom passed on by Odin, that kind of whole thing believed to be, it says like, yeah, it's fine to like sleep around, so long as nobody finds out about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the key differences between Vikings and Christians back in those days was that on the Viking end of the spectrum, you could divorce. A woman could actually ask for a divorce if, a man,
Yeah,
if her husband mistreated her or if he was too feminine in some way.
Yep.
She could ask for the divorce, and the same way the man could also divorce.
Yeah, same
the
way the
woman.
men if the woman was being too masculine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And polygamy was also a thing, even though it wasn't too widely talked about.
Yeah.
Whereas on the Christian end of the spectrum, you couldn't do any of those things.
Yeah, it was a sin.
Yeah, it was a sin to do that.
Yeah. I think it was Laxdal Saga, something like that. But it talks about some of the more famous people in Iceland, and they openly have like multiple relationships with like not only their their companion, their partner, but also with a mistress who was a slave who ended up being a like a noble from the royal family in Ireland. She was like an Irish princess who was sold into slavery, and like it was kept a secret, and she never spoke. And then like he found out and had a whole affair with her on the side, and like fathered a child, and that was the thing. So yeah, so it was way more like a common thing. I mean, it's still common throughout like all history, but it was way more of an open thing, I guess you could say.
In the Scandinavian countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I want to know where they filmed this so that I can go visit it.
Jesus. I slipped out. I think that's how his wife died. By Ivar.
Hold on,
We're gonna pause for that?
her apron turned into like a full-on just like worker's apron. She just went to Home Depot and bought herself like a whole
She got
one
like a
this
vest
time.
now, yeah.
And it doesn't even look like it's made out of proper leather or anything. Honestly, I feel like talking about fashion in this show is going to be it's gonna take up a lot of time.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I'm trying not to comment on the clothing because we already talked about the clothing, but it's always the clothing, guys. It's always the clothing.
Okay, so can we just say, just as a blanket statement, I get it, it's gonna happen. Clothing in the show is not great. It's not historically accurate at all.
I'll ante up with that. The clothing in the show isn't good. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna start saying that instead of going into it. Clothing's bad, folks. Good?
Good.
Okay.
Let me tell you something, Uber Lothbrok. I will not be left behind. I have had enough of compromising with the men in my life. Wherever you go, I will go too. Whatever you do, I will do too. Even...
I think I know what you're gonna say.
Lothbrok?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I cut that too.
Good. Okay. Yeah. Totally just like nitpicky. But yeah, she called him Uba Lothbrok. And that's not how
That's not his name.
That's not how Viking names work. So Lothbrok was a specific name, like a by name given to Ragnar, because it was it's a feature of him specifically. It's like how
It's like Harold Bluetooth.
yeah, it's like
you know?
Harold Bluetooth.
He
It's
was
like Harold
named that.
Finehair.
Yeah.
It's like Sven Forkbeard. It's like Jarl the Burnt, sadly. Eric the Red. Like they weren't names that were passed on as family names. It was something that was like indicative of this one individual. Lothbrok wasn't a last name. It was an identifier. So the way that Viking names work is that, for example, Uba, his father was Ragnar, so he would be Uba Ragnarsson.
The
Not-
son of Ragnar.
The son of Ragnar, not Uba Lothbrok. Ragnar's real name, like his technical, like full name, because his father was supposedly by the sagas a legendary folklore character, Sigurd. So he would have been Ragnar Sigurdsson. But he was known as Ragnar Lothbrok. Lothbrok means hairy breeches because supposedly, as the saga goes, he wore these like hide pants that like still had the hair on them, like the fur. So he was known by that kenning, basically. So I'm getting all in a huff about it, but like he wouldn't be. Lothbrok's not a last name. It's not a family name. It's not how it works.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Yeah. It belongs to Ragnar.
It was Ragnar's. Yeah, it belonged to Ragnar. It was his only.
Yeah.
to the ends of the earth, even to the ends of endurance. Isn't that what love means? Isn't it? Skál. Skál.
Going to King Harald's aid. Are you sure?
Powerful women.
That they should.
The one thing that they do pretty well in this show, at least from what we've seen as ships, aside from, a couple of questionable design decisions,
Yeah.
I would say that the ships have been pretty accurate, at least.
Yeah, the ships are great. They're hard to mess up.
And we have a lot of examples from
Yeah,
those ships
and
specifically.
I will say, if they did mess up, oh my god, if they messed up, I'd be so upset. But they don't, so we don't have to go down that horrible dark path. The ships, they do great. I don't really care too much about the little artistic liberties that they take. I think I mentioned it before, maybe. Because you have to kind of extrapolate some stuff. So I'm not gonna be a pain in the ass and say like, oh well, those ship heads were never like a historical find. We don't have an example of that. That's too far even for me.
Yeah.
Like, it's evocative of that Viking art style. It's similar to stuff that was found. It's maybe a little bit more modern and simplistic in terms of like the design. Like it's not as involved and in depth and stuff. Like the Augsburg heads that we found that we saw on in
Yeah.
the museum.
And
Those are
even-
elaborate, and they also weren't used as ship heads, but just like an example of carving.
Yeah. But even the ships themselves, like
Yeah.
you see these like elaborate carvings going down the sides of the ship as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Generally, which they don't seem to have, but it's not a huge deal.
Yeah, and you know, it's not to say that that was done on every single ship either. You know, I'm sure there were plenty that were just more simplistic and less ornate than the ones that we found, because the ones that we found in museums and stuff, you know, were lavish burials of very important people.
Exactly.
And it was like supposedly or whatever, it was their ship because it's the one they're getting buried in. So not every single ship's going to be kitted out like to the tens, you know.
Yeah.
And what about you?
What about me?
Are you still a Viking? Do you still secretly want to be on the move? Always traveling and never arriving?
No, of course not. I found my fixed point. Here's my space.
I have something good to say. I like that she asked him if he was still considered himself a Viking, or if he was still going to be a Viking. Because they didn't call themselves Vikings. They were just Northmen, Norsemen,
Right.
men from the north,
Right.
people of the north. Viking was a job, it was a profession, it was a verb, to go Viking. To go a Viking was to go raiding, basically. So I really like that she can like ask him that and like pose that kind of question to him in that way that we would understand of like what her deeper meaning, basically, you know.
That's a good catch. I actually didn't notice that, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the fact that they didn't call themselves Vikings. We tend to throw around the term Viking a lot nowadays just to describe Norsemen in general, but
And we shouldn't.
yeah,
Technically.
and what gets lost in the mix is that Vikings were the people that went raiding. They were the sailors. They were basically the navy of the day, like a pirate navy.
Yeah, I mean they were pirates.
Yeah,
100%.
they were the pirates. Whereas most of the Norse people in the day were fishermen. They were farmers. They took care of the homesteads.
Yeah, they were tradesmen. They were merchants.
Yeah.
They had professions.
Yeah.
You know, they had things to do, and a Viking was one of those things.
Yeah.
And you can do both. You could be a farmer and a tradesman and go out Viking if times were tough, or if you got bored, or if a couple people were getting a few ships together and you wanted to hop on board because it's a quick way to get money. It's a quick way to riches.
Yeah.
Especially-
Or if you were born as a second son.
Exactly. That's the thing I was going to go to, because inheritance is a thing. And in the Viking Age, the firstborn son was the one who inherited the land. Was the one who actually earned the inheritance. The second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever it is, however many sons you have, the secondary and onwards ones didn't get anything. It wasn't their birthright to inherit that. So these children, this generation, with nothing to their name, had to either submit to their elder brother, which that, or they could go make a living for themselves. And it was dangerous. It was high risk, but high reward. So you'd have to go out, find a ship, or find a crew, find somebody who had a ship looking for a crew, be able to sail and venture out. It would often, you've gone for months or years at a time, raiding coastlines, highly dangerous. You could die easily, if not in battle from just dysentery or disease, or a shipwreck, being lost at sea, which to die at sea was a horrible fate for the Vikings. Because then theoretically you'd be a Draugr, and that's beside the point. But you came back wealthier than
If you did come back.
if you came back. And that was awesome. And then you could just buy your own land and start your own farm and buy all your cattle and do everything like that, and then settle down from there.
To also add to that a little bit, some people did go sailing and raiding so that they could settle other lands.
Exactly.
So that they could find land that either owned somebody else that they could take, or to discover new land that they can then turn into their new farmstead.
Yeah, like what Ubo wants to do.
Yeah.
To make a long story short, I like that she put that in there.
Also, those look like proper Viking shields.
They're a little rough, but yes. Actually, I want to rewind this scene because I actually want to pay attention to it. I feel like it's kind of cool. I feel like it's kind of important.
I got distracted by the song.
Yeah, I got distracted by the song on the corpse paint too, so I want to see what she's saying because it's all in a language.
True.
Bear with us.
Yeah, those shields right there.
Yeah, they're not bad.
They're pretty accurate.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Probably just like reenactors' equipment.
Okay, before we get to that, and I have to censor stuff. So back in the Viking Age, the use of Seidr magic was thought to be a female characteristic. So it would be accurate that a woman would be leading a ceremony such as that.
Yep. Yeah. That scene was actually kind of cool. It kind of reminded me of the description that Ibn Fadlan had when he witnessed the boat burial of the Rus. The whole ceremony was led by a mythical woman who they refer to as the Angel of Death, and she was the one who like led the ceremony and gave the speech and processions and like cut off the chicken head and threw it over the boat and everything and like that. So it was really cool. So I kind of see that as like symbolic and reminiscent of that, which I really enjoyed. Don't know about the makeup.
We do have accounts of the black makeup around the eyes used in battle.
Yep, which I'm pretty sure also comes from Ibn Fadlan.
Does it?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, cool.
You'd be surprised how much comes from him.
I'm learning so much.
I'm
just
so
doing
happy
this.
he was literate. Oh my god. Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, they used like a mixture of like a charcoal, beeswax, some oils and things like that to make like to like darken around the eyes, supposedly for battle, so that it made your face look all sunken and scary and stuff.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
And so that way, when you put on your helmet, people wouldn't be able to see the sockets of the eyes, and all they would see is just the eyes shining
Highlighted
through.
like white of the eye. And
Yeah,
yeah.
just shining through the helmet.
Creepy.
Yeah.
I've done it before and actually it looks really creepy.
And like we were saying in the last, I think it was the last episode, battle for Vikings was all about just scaring the crap out of the enemy.
Yeah.
So
all
that they wouldn't
fear.
have to fight.
Yeah, it was all fear-based, all fear tactics and stuff like that, which is great for them.
So the black makeup here doesn't seem so far-fetched.
Yeah, not necessarily.
I'm sure the white doesn't either. I just don't know if they would have applied it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no context for us to have that, but again, creative license. Not too worried about it at all.
Right. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like button if you did. Hit subscribe and the bell to be notified of our future videos. And comment in the section below to let us know what you think so far about the commentary and the show in general. What was your favorite part about the Viking series so far?
What else do you want to see?
Yeah. What else do you want us to talk about? And we will see you next time.
I have something good to say.
Wait, let me take a sip so I can spit it out.
Please don't. That's milk. Please don't.
Don't tell them that. We're
Fix it
doing
in
dry January, by the way, so we're watching this without alcohol.
It's been a hard month.